friends, and welcome to Flosstube and Variety Show number 82. Today is June 9th, 2023, and I'm Emilie Williams in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Thanks for joining me today. Now, this is very odd because this is actually the second time I've recorded this, because I went along and did, 15 minutes or I don't know how long of video recording, and then the camera cut off, and so that was weird. I couldn't figure out why that was. And then I started up again and finished. And then when I went to review what I had recorded and, get it uploading, excuse me, I found that the first half had nothing. It was a 1 second recording. So I don't understand that. Hopefully this will stick. And the good news is that I know exactly what I talked about in the first half because it was all of the cross-stitch portion, which is the Flosstube part. The variety show, I also know what I talked about this time because I've already done it. But you'll have to wait and see, just because I already know. And believe me, I usually know what I'm going to talk about in the variety show before I start recording. It's fairly rare that I'm totally winging it. It's not unheard of, though. We have beautiful spring weather today, and lately we have had, for the most part, beautiful spring weather. Highs in the upper 70s and low 80s, and which is not as oppressive as the 80s, temperatures in the 80s would be in the summer, because it's not humid. Although we have had some haze and smoke in the air from fires all the way from Quebec, which the air flow is odd. It's not what I would have expected, but that's what's happening. Well, anyway, let's talk about cross-stitch. If I seem to be distracted from time to time, it's because I'm going to be watching to be sure that the video seems to be recording. I'll show you Emilie Kalwar, Hands Across the Sea. Emilie Kalwar, 1890. That is, Hands Across the Sea is kind of a theme of what I'm stitching these days. So I'll show it to you, what I have so far. So I finished this second band down here, and you see that those are roses, which I thought, when I first was stitching this, I thought, I wonder what those funny brown things are sticking out of the stems, and I realized they're the thorns of the roses. But that's kind of neat. I like it. I chose to stitch this one, as those of you who've watched my videos before, because I like the teal color in the top. It's kind of unusual, and all these colorful bands at the bottom. So I've done these two colorful bands, and then there's two more. The last two in particular are big and have a lot of stitching, and then there's her name and the date. And of course, to finish the border around the whole thing, which I haven't done. And so there's quite a bit of stitching left to go, and I'll say more about that in a moment, if I remember. Winter Rose Manor by Brenda Gervais. This is With Thy Needle and Thread. It's a publisher. This isn't a new piece, of course. Hundreds and hundreds of people have stitched it. And I'm going to show you this from back here. You may just be able to see that there's a cardinal there now. And I'll show it up closer. And I'm not worried about the fact that you can't see the cardinal against this fabric, because as you can see here, the cardinal is, the background of the cardinal is the house. And so that's fine. That'll be fine. The very end of his tail here sticks out beyond the edge of the house, but I think that is not going to be a problem with the fact that it blends in. So making progress on that. I also discovered that the flower that the cardinal is sitting on, I can't even see it. I can't even find it. here, this flower, is too close to the edge of the house. It's 1 stitch over. But in order to fix that, I would have to rip out things I don't want to rip out, which is everything. So, I mean, I wouldn't have to rip out everything. I don't want to rip out a single thing on that sampler. Sampler 193 by 2x2 stitch art. I've done about 600 stitches on this since I last showed it last week. And I'm just continuing, you know, finishing out these little curly cues and coming down toward the next corner of it. My goal would be to be, say, just over maybe just over 2/3 done. Could that be? Is that possible? I don't know. Around that by the end of the year. Here we have Golden Kite. I'm sorry, Golden Kite is the publisher. This is Under the Roof of Blue Ionian Weather. And I'm sorry, I'm now distracted by 2 things. One is watching the timer go. It looks like I'm still recording. And the other is I've been getting texts from my son, which I'll deal with later. Yes, Under the Roof of Blue Ionian Weather. And I had said I was going to show one of my 2 full coverage pieces every week, you know, alternate which one. And I haven't done that because I haven't wanted to. But you can see how far I am now. I am coming up on, I'm over 50%. In fact, I'm close to 40,000 stitches done. I'm within a few hundred of 40,000. And it's 72,000 altogether. So I guess I'm quite a bit more than 50%. So I'm coming close here at the bottom to the end of what I've gridded. And then at the top, I'm farther away from it, but it's so much confetti. I have also a lot of individual stitches, even going back this far about, that I have to do. And I don't want to take the gridding out until I have done those, just to be sure I'm finding them all. So I have to just buckle down and do that. It's hard. I mean, I switched down to the bottom in the area of the marble because there's slightly less confetti, as in a block of 100 stitches, for example, might have only 6 colors in it instead of 16 colors or 25 colors. So it's a little bit more feeling like I'm making progress, but it'll get done. I started at March 28th, 2021. So I've been working on it just over 2 years. I thought originally I was going to finish it in 2 years. Well, no. Then I thought, okay, 3 years. That would be this coming March 28th. No, I'm not going to worry about that. I think 4 years. Finish it in 4 years is reasonable. To me, that seems okay. And then finally, I will show you Mathilde. Again, Hands Across the Sea. This is the France sampler from Letters from Europe by Nicola Parkman. And that, I'm enjoying that. So you'll see here, the top 3 rows are essentially complete. The top border is not complete. I just put in a little bit of that inner border, just enough to make sure that I was anchoring my stitches correctly in position. And then I have finished the capital letters of that bold alphabet. And right after the Z is the first appearance of the blue thread. Yeah, there's 2 little blue people up there. And then I have an alphabet, which is the lowercase of the bold alphabet. And then I get down to all the border motifs, and that's where the blue starts more in earnest. So I was hoping that this morning, I would get I would finish that blue piece. But I had other things that I was doing, and I have other things to do today. So I didn't do it. So next time I show it, which might or might not be the next time I make a video. Now I am coming to the end of what I was saying in the first time through of this, but I do remember that something I wanted to say was the next thing I start, I had thought I was going to start it at the end of Emilie Kalwar, but I think I have 3 or 4 weeks of Emilie Kalwar to go, and I kind of would like to start Hannah Campbell, 1839, is that the date on that? I can't remember. I would like to start that sooner rather than later. I have all the threads. Is that true? Oh yes, it is true, because I got the 103 silks. And I have the fabric selected, which is Ballet Slippers by Fox and Rabbit. So I'm ready, really. It's just a matter of deciding when I want to add a complicated, large project to my what I'm working on. So I might start it sometime next week. And I think that was all that I had put into the video until the camera cut off or something. But at the moment, it seems to be running. Hopefully it is. And so now I'm going to shoot you over to the other video. That is the second half. And I will start that second half by saying, I don't know what happened to the camera. Anyway, here you go. Well, that was weird. I'm not sure why that cut off. I didn't say anything. I didn't do anything weird. I don't know. As I had talked about, I want to do this piece, which is called Mighty Acorn. I'm going to get that name of this piece in my mind, firmly in my mind. Mighty Acorn. It's Blackbird Designs. It's in their Winds of Autumn book. And this is going to be the next Blackbird piece I start, I think. And if you recall from previous videos when I was discussing it, I have all the threads, all weeks, typical, what I've learned are typical Blackbird, why they don't show up well at all. Typical Blackbird threads. I have all but one. Well, actually, I have the one. It's Sage, which is also in the Winter Rose Manor. And I've decided on the fabric, which I'm going to do this on, which is Hog Bristle by Fox and Rabbit. So I have a yard of this, and I got it because I still want to do Harriet Salt, which is one of the Hands Across the Sea Bristol samplers on this fabric, but I have a yard of it, so there's plenty. But I think this will be nice. This is 16 count Aida, and I think it'll be fine. The original Mighty Acorn was stitched on 36 count Wren, which I'm not going to try to get something that's exactly like that, and I'm entirely satisfied with stitching on Aida, so that's fine. And I think it'll be very nice. It's so much coverage. I mean, there's so much stitching. Well, the fabric shows too, but I think it's fine on Aida. Aida is a venerable fabric. It's not new. In fact, Zweigart developed Aida some time ago, years ago, maybe 100 years ago. I don't know if that could be, but this is what it is. I'm not starting that. I will probably start that the first weekend in July, because that would be the Blackbird weekend stitch along. So I'm going to make that a Blackbird weekend stitch along piece. And it may not be uninterrupted. I might set it aside some Blackbird weekends in order to work on something else, just because it's a pretty big piece. And I might not only stitch on it then, because there are no cross-stitch police as I've learned. So that is all I wanted to show you with regard to cross-stitch. And since my camera cut out, I'm not sure how long I have been going, but hopefully this will not be overly long. So I wanted to talk to you about a couple of other things. First of all, if you watch my videos from last year or the year before, you may remember that one of the things I do is tablet weaving. And of course I meant to bring some examples of tablet weaving to show you. I don't know if that will focus or not. I don't know. Well, don't look too close because there are a lot of mistakes in this so far. But this is a loom. This is actually a inkle, that's it. I-N-K-L-E, inkle loom, which is used for a different type of weaving. It's to weave bands like tablet weaving produces, or this type of tablet weaving, but the warp threads are manipulated in a different way. The warp threads are manipulated by means of these tablets twisting. These right here, you see the threads go through here, and this is the shed, the space between the threads. And over here, I have my shuttle. I have it attached with a ribbon. I'm trying not to drop it. And so you twist the cards, rotate the cards in order to create a different combination of which warp threads go up and which go down. And this is a four-hole card with 4 threads per card. And so that's the twisting. And if you want to really learn about it, there are YouTube channels about it. The one I think is the best is Eloise of Finchenfeld, I think her channel is called, and that's not her real name. There's a group called Society of Creative Anachronism, I think it is, SCA. Let's say the letters in the right order. Society for Creative Anachronism. And these are people who explore it's primarily medieval crafts and history and customs and culture. And they dress up in linen and cloaks, and, you know, some of them are blacksmiths and they forge swords and armor, and some of them are weavers like Eloise. And I'll put the name of her channel down below because it isn't spelled the way we Americans spell the name Eloise. But that's how I learned, is by watching her channel. And 2 years ago in the state fair, I won a red ribbon, a second prize for my tablet weaving. And I'll put a picture here of that. In fact, I'll put a couple pictures of tablet weaving that I've done. This is the pattern, and it's all written on because I'm trying to keep track of what I'm doing. So there are other ways to do tablet weaving. One is, instead of using a loom where the warp is tied, so here the warp is tied to itself. All this knot stuff is the warp tied to itself. So you run the warp threads through the loom in the pattern that you want in order to get the length that you want, and then you tie them together. Another way to do it is you tie the one end of the thread to a belt that you wear around your waist, and the other end you put weights on it, or you tie it to a doorknob or something, so you keep the tension that way. And that is more portable because you can just, you know, carefully coil that up, and then when you're ready to weave anywhere at all, you just uncoil it and tie it to something that's sturdy enough to hold the tension on all those threads, and just carry on with the weaving. And that would work great if you were, I mean, any of those portable situations would work fine if you were doing an extremely simple pattern. But this has 40 lines in its pattern. There's no way I could memorize that. In fact, I can't. So far am I from memorizing it that I can't even keep my place in the pattern without writing down which line I've just done. And here I've done about 7 inches of weave out of maybe 2 yards that I'll end up with altogether. And the last inch of this 7 inches is correct. It took me 6 inches to figure out what I was doing. And part of that is because it's been a while since I've done any tablet weaving. This is the first time this year I've warped up the loom. But part of it is because it requires concentration to get it right. And I'm not as skilled at it. I just don't have as much experience. This is done in size 8 pearl cotton, which is pretty fine. It's not the finest that they make. I think they make size 12 pearl cotton, which I can't really see why you would want pearl cotton. Oh, well, no, that is totally not true. Emilie, stop. That is a ridiculous statement. Smaller pearl cotton is used for lace making. For instance, tatting, which I do. And I have used size 12 pearl cotton, and smaller yet. But my thought is that this piece, if I can ever get it going and get a stretch of at least a yard of it that's correct, I would enter it in the North Carolina State Fair. And if I can't, if I get halfway through it and realize I've just made too many mistakes, then I might just abandon the pattern and just carry on doing a bunch forward and a bunch back just to sort of use up the warp, and then rewarp with some different, simpler pattern. And frankly, maybe bigger thread. This is hard. It's hard to make it work well, I'm finding. Yeah. I'm disappointed in how that it's taken me 7 inches to remember how to do this, but it's all right. It'll get there. I'll get there on it. Another thing I wanted to mention is, I don't think I've mentioned this in a few months. This weekend is the World Puzzle Federation Sudoku Grand Prix, and it is not too late to join it. You can get going on it at any individual month, any individual round. This is the 6th round out of 8 for this year, but you could go ahead and start. I know all of you, I'm sure, are fascinated with variant Sudoku and want to get going on it. But I've done all 5 rounds so far, and my score in 5 rounds so far is higher than my score was for all 8 rounds last year. So I've definitely improved my Sudoku solving. And also just sort of figured out how to manage the technology has been a help as well. But I'm looking forward to doing that. I think it's open now, so I could do it this evening. We'll see. I sort of try to figure out what is my most alert time of the day. And evening might not be it, although with the adrenaline that comes from there being a time limit, that might help me make evening more better. That was just a phone call that came in, which I guess I didn't put myself on Do Not Disturb. So I'll just have to call Cindy back in a few minutes. So what else is going on? Oh, yes. Our book club is reading a book that I read it, 20 or more years ago, and we're reading it this year. We read one classic per year, and this year the classic is The Moonstone by Wilkie Collins, which also I believe is the first mystery story in a novel. And it was written back in the early 19th century, I believe, and it's quite good in that the main character, who is the narrator, has been the household servant, the family's trusted servant for 50 years. So he knows the household and he knows some of the lore of the family. And he also is quite a character because he likes to, the way he composes his mind is to smoke his pipe and read Robinson Crusoe. And he uses Robinson Crusoe, he lets the book fall open and reads whatever his eye falls on, the way some people use the Bible, which I would argue is more appropriate for Robinson Crusoe than for the Bible. But it's his way of, sort of gathering his thoughts and becoming peaceful in mind, and it's very charming. I'm only about a third of the way through reading it this time, and I actually have forgotten how it turns out. I've forgotten the who done it. I've forgotten who done it, but the Moonstone is a very valuable gem that has quite a history connected with it, a family history as well as a history in the world, fictional, of course. And so that's been kind of entertaining to read that. And, it's not it's a drama, and there's family dynamics and things like that. But it's 19th century. It's not as gritty as the same story told in the late 20th century would be. And also I'm reading, I think I mentioned this last time, C.S. Forrester's Horatio Hornblower stories. Still enjoying those. So those are things I'm reading right now. So I don't think I have anything else of particular note to talk about this week. I will be doing a video again next week. That's kind of amazing. It'll be 3 Fridays in a row. That's good. And at least I think I'll be doing a video. There is another event happening next Friday, which possibly would make it hard for me to do a video. The next day, the 17th, we'll be going back up to see our son and daughter-in-law. So that'll be fun, see the dogs and the chickens and what else they've done around the place. And I think that's all. So I hope that you're enjoying whatever you're doing, and if you have weekend plans, or a lot of high school graduations are happening this weekend in our area anyway. And I know around the country and around the world, the dates of high school ending are quite different. In fact, our son and daughter-in-law's school, their last day of school was over a week ago. So they've already started their summer. And that is all. So thanks for joining me today, and many blessings to you, friends.